introduce you to our next speaker, Seth Godin. Seth is an entrepreneur and the founder of Alt MBA. He's a best-selling author of over 20 books. Wow, that's quite an achievement. Today he's going to be talking to us about must-have skills for independent creators. These are skills that will help you stand out from the crowd. Don't forget to write your questions in the chat. Hi, Seth. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Hello, web creators. I have been doing this for a long time. I started my first internet company 3 years before the World Wide Web. That mistake cost me a lot because I didn't see the World Wide Web when it came. I am thrilled to be here to celebrate Elementor's 5th anniversary, 5th birthday. I don't know which one we should call it. And I'm really happy to talk to you about some of these ideas. I thought the questions you suggested for my friend Gary were terrific. So I'm going to leave plenty of time for those. Queue them up in the chat and we'll get to them. So I got 5 big ideas that I want to share with you in celebration of the 5th anniversary. Ready? Here we go. The first one. This one's hard. Are you a freelancer or are you an entrepreneur? Because it's important to understand that one is not better than the other. They are different. Right here, right now, I am a freelancer. If you hire Seth Godin, you get Seth Godin. If you read my blog, I wrote it. If I put something into the world, it's because I personally made it. I'm a freelancer. I get paid when I work. That is different than being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs use money, usually outside money, to build something bigger than themselves. And if that's your job, A, you should be prepared to sell the thing once it gets big enough. And B, you should realize your job is not to do the work. Because what happens among talented web creators is as soon as you get busy, as soon as money runs tight, in both situations, you do the same thing. You hire the cheapest available person, the most talented, cheap available person. And you know who that is? You. So you keep hiring yourself to do the juicy bits or the hard bits or the important bits. And now you're not doing your real job, which is to build an entity bigger than yourself. And that's why on a regular basis over 25 years, I keep looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I'm a freelancer. And so the Akimbo, the workshop organization I started, I don't own it. I don't run it. I have nothing to do with its management anymore. A B Corp does that now with talented people who are good at running an institution. And so if you're going to get one thing out of today, it might be this: make a decision. If you're a freelancer, be a freelancer. If you're an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. Burnout happens. Next idea is this: choose your customers, choose your future. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you can't have all the customers. You have a limited amount of staff. If you're a freelancer, you just have maybe you. But even if you don't, you have a limited amount of staff. Gary Vee's only got 1,500 people. You can't have everyone. The customers you choose are going to be the customers who determine what your day is going to be like, what your P&L is going to be like, what your work is going to be like. And so you have to make a choice. The choice you have to make is, am I proud to work for this person? Am I complaining about my clients? Am I attracting good or almost good customers? Meaning I have to work more hours, I have to hassle them to pay me on time, and I have to push them to get good work out of them. Or do I want to become the kind of shop that attracts great customers? Because great customers not only pay on time, they eagerly pay more. They challenge you to do better work. They talk about the work you do, and they hold you accountable. You don't get great customers by doing a good job with good customers. You get great customers by getting rid of your bad customers and using that space to put work into the world that attracts great customers. Do you even know what a great customer looks like? Are you and your team clear about that? Number 3, the secret to all of this, especially the idea of getting better customers, is to seek out the smallest viable audience, not the biggest possible audience, the smallest one that you can thrive with. Too many people on this call have the following unstated motto. Your motto is, you can pick anyone and we're anyone. How do I get the word out? How do I get more people to be interested in what I do? This is a bad question because you are proudly in a niche. You know, I've written 20 best-selling books, but even in my home country, the United States, fewer than 2% of the people in the entire country have ever read a book I have written. 98% of the available market, not my customer. It's not for them. And if I get a note from somebody who says, why isn't your blog in Danish? Why aren't you making more references to what's going on in this country or that country? I have to say, it's not for you. And I can say that happily and proudly because it puts me on the hook to be able to say to other people, I made this for you. And so embracing this idea of the smallest viable audience is critical. The fourth one, I think, if I'm counting right, what will I tell the others? If you're doing B2B selling, if you are trying to build websites or interactions online that spread, what will I tell the others is a critical sentence. What it means is your idea, your business, your site, it's not going to spread because people care about you, and it's not going to spread because you spent a lot of money spreading it. It's going to spread because the people who hired you or the people who saw your work tell other people. Simple example, you're busy posting things on Twitter right now. How did you find out about Twitter? Did you find out about them because of their sponsorship of the World Cup? Did you find out about them because of that billboard near your house? Did you find out about them because of that? No. Twitter didn't get found out because Twitter spent any money at all hustling people's attention. They got found out because people who used it told other people to use it because it would help them. And so when Elementor says, go post this on Twitter, they're promoting Twitter. And the same thing can be true about how your company works, about the community that you seek to organize, about the work that you do, about the commits you put into public things in GitHub, whatever it is, it's going to spread because people chose to talk about it. And the fifth one is this, a simple question. What do you make? What do you make? Not how much money do you make, and not what website did you make. No, my argument is that you are a marketer. You are here to do work to make something. And what you're here to make is change. That's what we do. We make a change happen. That change might be something really prosaic. I turn non-customers into customers. It's a change, but it could be something more important than that. You may have heard of Harley Davidson Motorcycles, a multi-billion-dollar company that management tried to drive into the ground, but leaving that part aside. At their peak, what did Harley Davidson make? Not motorcycles. What Harley Davidson made was a chance for a group of people, disrespected outsiders, to feel like they mattered, to feel like insiders. That is what Harley Davidson makes. At its peak, what did Apple do? Apple taught a group of people, not very many of us, a group of people to have good taste about digital interaction because they argued that if they could raise the standard for how people engaged with digital devices, those people, once they had better taste, would be more likely to tell the others, would be more likely to demand ever more. And so that's why you need to put fonts on the Mac because, you know, ASCII works, we can read it, but Garamond Pro, well, that demands even more. Now suddenly we know what kerning is. So one way of describing this is another question. Who do you want your customers to become? If I become a client of your firm, is my life going to change? Is my company's life going to change? How? Or are you just like somebody on Upwork or Fiverr? And if you are, and if your motto is you can pick anyone and we're anyone, guess what? I'm going to pick someone else, someone cheaper than you. The problem with racing to the bottom is that you might win, or worse, come in second. And if you are privileged enough and powerful enough to come on this call, you don't want to race to the bottom. What you have instead is a chance to race to the top. And the race to the top is thrilling. You know, for years and years, I've known the folks at R. Greenberg in New York City who charge, I'm just guessing, 100 times more than you do. And yet they have a waiting list because they, you know, remember the Terminator? Well, the special effects in the Terminator were done by those guys. Because if you want to do the special effects in the Terminator, there weren't very many people to hire. The idea is to be one of a few, to narrate for a group of people who were connected before you got there, but who might need and want your leadership. And this opportunity is right in your lap, because too often the questions that you're asking, the things you wake up in the morning wondering about, the people that you're hiring, it's about hustle. Nobody wants to get hustled. You don't need to hustle to get new business when you stand for something. Years ago, I wrote a book called Tribes, and that word is really old. It goes all the way back to the desert and to lost tribes and everything else. It has been misused by colonialists to push us away from First Peoples around the world. That's not what the book's about. What the book is about are groups of people who are connected by a dream, by a desire, by a way of being. It may be that there's a group of people who you are currently serving with the sites that you're building. There's a group of people that you are serving with the clients that you are collecting. And what you have is a chance to establish for that group of people who will be there even if you're gone, that they can see the others, that they can gain status and affiliation by being part of what you're building. That as marketers, everything you do that touches the market is marketing. Everything. The way you answer the phone, the clients you choose, the clients you don't choose, the words you use, the stack that you're building. And so there was a question before my question to Gary, and the question was, how do we deal with clients that don't agree with the way we want to treat the people we are seeking to serve? And the answer is, you should say no. When you say no, when you show them the door, when you draw that line in the sand that Gary talked about, now you have a chance to stand for something. That you will be known for the clients you don't have as much as for the clients that you do have. You will be known by your portfolio, and you're not allowed to say, oh, ignore this one. We just did what the client wanted. Because agencies and web creators that just do what the client wants don't have great clients. They have clients that can't face change. They have clients that aren't eager to go to the next level. So as I wrap up my rant, I want to talk a little bit about empathy, practical empathy. Understanding that the people who visit the website you built don't know what you know. They haven't seen what you've seen. They don't understand what you understand. And that's okay. And if you can't say, and that's okay, then you can't serve them. Because what it means to say, I see you, I understand where you're coming from, is you can do practical, useful web design. You can actually create a change in the people you're seeking to serve. You can show up with work that matters for people who care to do this work that causes a change. So I know I've brought up a whole bunch of things that if you thought about them are pretty unsettling. So I want to tell two stories, and then we're going to shift to Q&A. The first story is this. Years ago, when I was building Yoyodyne, one of the very first companies on the internet, we invented email marketing. I had a tech office in Boston because it was too hard to get good tech people in New York. And it's 184 miles from here to the tech office. I know this because I used to drive there. And when I drove there, I would spend lots of time in traffic looking up above and seeing planes getting to Boston in no time flat. So every once in a while I would fly. This is before 9/11, and I would get to the White Plains airport for a flight they don't run anymore. And one time I got from my house to Boston in, I think, 37 minutes or something. It was amazing. And of course, karma came back to haunt me because the whole time home, we circled the airport in White Plains until we had to make an emergency landing at 9:30 at night in Albany, New York. And even if you're from out of state, even if you're from out of the country, judging from the way I said Albany, New York, you know it's not a place I wanted to spend a lot of time. So the pilot comes on about 9:45 and says, we're in Albany. Yeah, I knew that. And then they say, we'll probably be here till about midnight. I think I can have you home by 1 a.m. Well, this is ridiculous because it's only an hour and 45-minute drive from Albany to the White Plains Airport. So I open my laptop. I have one of these newfangled modems that are very common now. And I go online, and Avis is closing in 10 minutes. And Avis has one car left. It's a four-door. And I buy it, and I pay for it. And I close my laptop, and I stand up on the plane, and I turn to everybody, and I say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a psychopath. I'm wearing a tie. Here's the deal. My car is in White Plains, and so is yours. And I just rented the last car in the airport. I got 3 empty free seats. Who wants a ride home? No one raised their hand. As far as I know, they're still in Albany. And I spent the whole ride home wondering, was it my pitch? Was it my presentation? Was it my user interface? And then I realized what the problem was. The problem was that we have been brainwashed around the world to understand that if we stay on the plane, it's United Airlines' fault. And if we get off the plane, it's our fault. And so people are afraid to get off the plane. And what I'm here to do is beg you to get off the plane. Beg you to stop being a commodity provider of commodity web creation. Beg you to stop saying, I'm for everybody and I'm a lot like those folks, but maybe a little cheaper. Because low price, Gary and I don't agree, low price is the last refuge of a marketer with nothing left to say. And you have a lot to say. And in this moment, this revolutionary moment, when the perfect is being destroyed and the impossible is being created, we have a chance to stand for something, for change, for justice, for fairness, for dignity, for the benefit of the doubt. We have the chance to find a group of people and connect them around our work, to do work that matters for people who care. And yes, my last story. 10.5 years ago, I got invited to a really cool conference in New Mexico. It was a secret conference. We weren't supposed to talk about it. There were politicians, and there were billionaires, and there were playwrights and authors and people you wanted to hang out with. And the last speaker was scheduled to be Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon. And that night, they brought us out to this mesa. It was like 4 degrees Celsius. It was freezing. They gave us all blankets. The stars were out. It was crystal clear. And they built a big campfire right in the middle of this mesa. And Neil Armstrong gets on stage to start talking about his mission. And as he's talking, I think there was some advanced planning involved. The biggest full moon I've ever seen starts rising over his shoulder. And he stops and he turns and he says, I've been there. The thing is, there are footprints on the moon. And NASA put footprints on the moon when the sum computing power of the entire institution was less than the phone in your pocket. So when you feel like you are just a cog in the system, or that it's getting too tricky because the technology keeps changing too fast, just go outside and look up in the sky and realize there are footprints on the moon. Because what this means to me is that, of course, you can succeed, but what you actually have is a chance to matter. And I hope you'll take that chance. Back to you. Let's do some questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Seth. I loved your stories, and I particularly loved what you said at the beginning about making choices, because we kind of forget that sometimes, that it's up to us to make the choice. So I'm going to start with the first question. This is a big one. This is a really big one. Where do you think marketing is going? What do you see on the horizon? If you are starting from zero again, how would you position yourself?
Love this question. It's about the next big thing, right? And there are people, including my colleague Gary, who specialize in the next big thing. I, on the other hand, believe that the next big thing arrived 25 years ago and is still here. The next big thing, which you have not been paying attention to, and you better hurry, is for the first time in the history of humanity, we can reach other people for free if they want us to, at scale. That changes everything. That helps you understand social media. That helps you understand the unrest in the world. That helps you understand so many things. You can reach the people who want to hear from you when they want to for free at scale. So what's your permission base? Because if you had started a blog when I started a blog, you'd have 1 million people who read what you write every day, right? That what Facebook has done, which I don't agree with, is made it so that you can maybe have friends, but they're not really followers because it's up to Facebook about whether or not you get to reach those people. The opportunity persists. The opportunity is, who have you earned the right to talk to? I call it permission. And if you have permission, you never have to hustle. You never have to look for work. You can always do work you're proud of. And if you don't have permission, because you're always running around looking for the next big thing, it's always going to be hard.
Okay, great. Next question. What's your advice on dealing with colleagues, team members, and clients who find it difficult to come on board on innovative, not done before, different from what's being done, ideas and concepts?
Yeah, what a great question. So let's talk for a minute about the difference between authority and responsibility. Industrial capitalism has pushed us to care a lot about authority. Who do I get to tell what to do next? This is why we have managers. Fast food restaurants have managers, because if they didn't, people wouldn't show up for their shift. Leadership is different, because there is no authority involved in leadership. If you have authority, you're a manager. Leadership is voluntary. So when you go to people, colleagues or clients or whatever, and say, I've got this brand new idea, isn't this cool? And they say, I don't know. What you were really asking them for was authority to go do it. And what you really wanted was for them to take responsibility for your experiment. And that is never the way tech evolves. Tech evolves instead with people who don't have authority taking responsibility. I'm going to do this thing. And when it doesn't work, I'm going to take the blame. And when it does work, I'm going to give credit to other people. Because if you give enough people credit, they're going to ask you to do it again. And so the frontier isn't about getting Mercedes-Benz or some giant conservative corporation to say, yes, go do something innovative. I love the way you say that word, innovative. Instead, it's, I made this and it worked. Thanks for giving me the room to do so. You want me to do it again? And if you approach it that way, you'll be amazed at how much you can get done.
Okay, we're lapping this up here. It's all amazing tips. As an entrepreneur, what do you find most crucial for choosing your first hire?
This is a really good question. Sometimes you should hire for skill. It might be that your first hire, you need to hire for skill. That they know how to do a thing really, really, really well. If you hire for skill, you should be prepared to fire for attitude. That once you don't need that skill anymore, if the person doesn't have the attitude that you need, then you can't keep them around because they will corrupt the entire organization. But most of the time, I think it pays to hire for attitude and then teach the skill. Because I believe attitudes are skills. I believe attitudes can be taught. But I also know it's much harder to teach an attitude than it is to teach a skill. So when you're hiring a first person, if you hire someone with an extraordinary attitude of resilience and optimism and charisma and connection and honesty and loyalty and possibility and creativity and hard work, you can teach them how to code. They'll teach themselves how to code if you point them in the right direction. And first hires are very tricky, and they make a huge difference in the organization that you're seeking to build. And the word build is key, because they're the foundation for the house you're going to live in for a long time. And if you skimp on that, your house is never going to be built very well.
Okay, next question. I think you're going to like this one because of your approach with permission marketing. So I have a brand. I get good sales when I run paid ads. They refer to their friends too. But once I stop the ads, it shuts my business Are there any organic ways or good ideas to grow a brand?
Okay, so first thing is brand is not logo. You know that, but some people on this call don't. Some people say, I'm going to go through a rebranding exercise. What they actually mean is I'm going to get a new logo. No one cares about your logo. Sorry. A brand is a promise. It is an expectation. It is, when I hire you, do I have a hope as to what's going to happen? So the easy way to remember this, Hyatt hotels, they don't have a brand. They have a logo. Because if Hyatt came out with a line of sneakers, we have no idea what it would be like. But Nike has a brand. Because if they came out with a hotel, we know exactly what a Nike hotel would be like because of the expectation. So with that background, I'm going to now say advertising is amazing when it works. It is a self-directed exchange of money for attention. And if it pays for itself, do it more. Most of the big brands of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s were average stuff for average people. Heinz ketchup, Kraft singles, name it, whatever you want. And that's because they bought a lot of ads. So if I'm hearing you right, if you buy ads and you make money doing so, keep doing it till it stops working because it's not unethical to do so. And there are businesses that have been built really powerfully on that simple economic measure. On the other hand, if you can't measure it or it's not working, then the defect is your pricing is such that you're not making enough of a profit per customer, or the thing you're offering is too easily replaced. You don't stand for enough for a small enough group. And so I have a simple mathematical formula here, which is this. For people who believe blank and who want blank, hiring us will get you blank. Can you say that sentence about what you do? And if you can, then the key is to obsess about the first part of it for people who believe blank, so that you can show up in the right place at the right time with the right message, whether it's organic or not. But again, we have to go all the way back to, what will I tell my boss? If I hire your firm, I need to tell my boss why I paid extra. Do you have a good story for me?
Okay. I think maybe you covered some of this in the previous question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and if there's more to add, let me know. How can we emerge on social media now when all the focus is on short attention and fun? If we don't want to play the social circus game, how can we be discovered in 2021?
I don't think you should work for Mark Zuckerberg, and I don't think you should work for Jack Dorsey, and I don't think you should work for Microsoft. Using social media the way they want you to use social media means you work for them. That's not the way you should be spending your time. And there are plenty of important ideas. There are plenty of worthwhile brands that don't use social media aggressively. Like, I don't put myself in the category of important, but just to pick my own example, I don't use Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. On the other hand, I create stuff that other people talk about on those platforms because they are just conversations elevated. And so what it means is we have a chance to build something remarkable. And what remarkable means is super simple, right? Remarkable means worth making a remark about. That what we have is the chance to put something in the world that people choose to talk about. So when this book came out, I was a failure. I had been kicked out of the book world. I had no publisher. So I self-published it. I made 10,000 copies. It's not easy to get something into a milk carton. That's a whole other story for when we have more time. And then I sold it just to 5,000 people who were already enrolled, who I already had permission to talk to, who were readers of my column in Fast Company. 5,000, that was it. And I sold it to them for $5. I broke even. Why is it in a milk carton? Isn't that a gimmick? No, it's not a gimmick. And I'll tell you why. I was doing a service for those 5,000 people because the people who read Purple Cow 15 or 20 years ago wanted their boss to change the way they did their job. They wanted permission to do remarkable work. And so if you put this on your desk, and someone walks by your office and says, "What's that?" You don't tell them about my book because you like me. You don't even know me. You tell them about my book because it will help you talk about my book. And so the idea spreads. So the way to be found in 2021 isn't by having a clever TikTok account. You might get lucky. Someone needs to get lucky. It might go viral. I saw one go viral 2 days ago. This idiot on a party bus was drinking beer and threw a can of beer at a car, and the guy in the car threw it right back and hit him in the face. That was it. And I'm sure this TikToker thought, wow, my gravy train has come in. Now people are going to look at all my other videos. Not so much. That winning the hustle for attention is not the same as earning trust. Do not burn trust to get attention, but it's okay to burn attention to get trust.
Okay, love it. Next question. I'm an entrepreneur who's just started out. How can I narrow down the target audience from various groups that I have identified?
Right. So there's no formula. It just takes the guts to pick. And you may have saw it before I fanned these cards. So there's a company that a friend of mine, Achar, runs called Penguin Magic. Now, Penguin Magic does something very specific. They make and sell magic tricks to amateur magicians. Why? Because professional magicians only need 15 tricks because they do the same show every night. But amateur magicians need more and more tricks because their 3 friends are bored with the old tricks. And so from that one little tiny insight, Achar and his team have built a company that does millions and millions of dollars of revenue. Why? Because they were specific. If you want juggling supplies, they don't have them. If you want to learn how to knit, they can't teach you. If you are an amateur magician prepared to spend 5, 10, 50, 100 bucks at a time, this is for you. And it's the only one of its kind when it came out. And the way that they built the engine was super simple, which is we'll show you a video of someone doing the trick, but you can't learn how to do it unless you pay us. What a simple promise. And those videos went viral because it was fun to talk about. So was Achar super wise and insightful when he picked magicians instead of knitters? Not so much, because the person who picked knitters did great. The thing is, you just got to pick. You just got to pick.
Okay. Next question. You're an amazing storyteller, so I think you're going to like this one. How do you tell great stories via audio or podcasting?
So my friend Bernadette Jiwa, Jiwa, has written 6 best-selling books about storytelling. They only cost $5 or $10 each. Go read a couple of them. The technology of storytelling is the oldest technology we have. Stories are older than the Bible. Stories go way back. And a story doesn't start with once upon a time, and a story doesn't end with happily ever after. A story might simply be a Birkin bag. A Birkin bag walking down the street on someone's shoulder is a story. It's a story of status. It's a story of scarcity. It's a story of privilege. It's just lots of stories depending on who you're telling the story to. So a story begins with, who exactly am I talking to? And it extends to, where is the tension? Because if my story is boring or simply an anecdote, then you're only interested because you're interested in me. And that's not, you may have noticed, I almost never tell stories about something Seth did, because that's not interesting. I'm trying to tell stories about something you care about or something you might do, because that's the person you're the most interested in. And so learning to get better at stories is just like learning to juggle or learning to code in JavaScript. You can learn to do it by doing it poorly until you learn how to do it well.
That's definitely good advice. Do you think there is ever a time to give up? If yes, when? It's difficult to know when it's better to fight or let go of your dream.
I wrote a whole book about this topic. I don't speak whatever language this is, but it also comes out in English. And I'm a huge, huge fan of quitting. I think if you are not regularly quitting, you are trapped. Like maybe you took ballet lessons or cello when you were 6, but you're still not taking lessons in that. You're not wearing a tutu right now. You quit. Quitting is a virtue. Quitting, as my friend Annie Duke says, is appropriate. You know you're doing it right when you feel like you quit a little too soon. So what the dip is about is simple. We all start stuff. And there is a moment if we start something that's important or valuable where it gets really hard. Because if it wasn't that, then everyone would get to the other side and it wouldn't be important and valuable because everyone would know how to do it, right? So your ability to handwrite your name isn't valuable because everyone knows how. There's no dip on the way to do that. On the other hand, to be the person who knows more than anyone in the world about building a website for a plastic surgeon, that's hard. You had to persevere and persevere and persist until you got to the other side. So the argument of the dip is don't start something if you're not willing to get to the other side. That's the first rule. And number 2 is when it gets really, really hard, remind yourself that you knew it was going to get really, really hard so you can get to the other side. But if you are doing something where very few people get through the dip, quit right now and use the resources you are freeing up to get great at something where you can get great at it. Because being a wandering generality, as Zig Ziglar used to say, isn't worth your time. You need to become a meaningful specific.
Meaningful specific. I like it. We'll remember it. How do I find time for marketing? To find new clients when I'm too busy with current client work?
So that is the question a freelancer would ask, not a question an entrepreneur would ask. So let's make sure we're very clear about the difference one more time. The freelancer says, what I do for a living is design websites. The entrepreneur says, what I do for a living is hire people to design websites and hire people to make sales. If you're too busy, it's because you haven't hired enough people to design websites and to make sales. And you will make time for marketing when you decide to be an entrepreneur. If you're a freelancer, this is something I've wrestled with for 25 years. This is a different question because you can't simultaneously get new clients and do the work. So the discipline is to put it on your calendar, to put it on your calendar right next to the client meetings. Every single day from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I'm doing client development. Not me personally, but I'm just saying every single day from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I'm writing a speech, I'm giving a TED talk, I'm leading a community, I'm giving free connecting advice. I'm doing something drip by drip by drip by drip so that at the end of 300 days, I've spent 300 hours doing it. And you're going to have to figure out what that number is, but it's got to be on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't count.
Okay, so routines. Routines are important here. I only have basic website design skills, and Elementor helps a lot. Thank you for whoever wrote that one. Do you think there is a way I can still stand out without having the most beautiful website?
Well, I'm not interested in helping you stand out. I'm interested in helping you matter. And the question is, why would anyone hire you? Would you hire you? Why would they hire you even if you're not the cheapest? And I'm guessing the answer is yes. Because maybe you ask good questions. Maybe you've read the Rocket Surgery book and you can do better user interviews than anybody else. Maybe you have extraordinarily detailed domain knowledge about the client's area of expertise. Maybe you have a Rolodex of 30 talented translators. And that means that when the website is done on Tuesday, you can have it in 30 languages on Thursday. Maybe you have put an absolutely extraordinarily talented web designer on the payroll. And when someone needs a beautiful website, they build it. You're just the interface. Or maybe you spend 100 hours and get good at building beautiful websites. All of these are available. Back to where we started. You got to make a choice.
Okay. The next question. What is your position in working with social media influencers to boost your brand?
Okay, so there's a paradox in paying for somebody to profess affection for what you do. It is very similar to the paradox of paying to have somebody go on a date with you. And in many places, that's against the law because it's this weird imbalance. And there are definitely people who have pulled off the social influencer dance. They have done it by being clear with the people who follow them about how they pick what they pick and what it means for them to stand behind it. So if you've seen Kevin Kelly's Cool Tools website, it's fantastic. I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's been going on for decades.
Oh,
The only
much
thing that gets listed in Cool Tools are tools that are cool. And if he started taking bribes to put non-cool tools up, it would disappear in a heartbeat. And they make all their money from Amazon affiliate links. On the other hand, if we're talking about those people who are like hyping one version of skincare over another, eventually it wears out because eventually their followers realize it's just going to the highest bidder. And the highest bidder is usually somebody who makes average stuff for average people. So it's a fine line. It can be walked, but you should go in with your eyes open, knowing that the easier it is to buy someone's endorsement, the less the endorsement is worth.
Okay. I think we have time for a couple more questions. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people have questions, and we'll do our best to squeeze in two more, or a few more. I want to know if trends are worth following. I believe that authenticity, creativity, and transparency are essential to creating bonds with customers. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so first I just have to rant for 1 minute about authenticity. No one cares about authenticity. Authenticity is overrated. If you went to the doctor and they were authentically having a horrible day because they had an argument with their spouse, you don't care. You just want the best version of that doctor. You want, whenever you are engaging professionally, you want consistency, not authenticity. So with that said, most trends are overrated. The next big thing was going to be augmented reality and virtual reality for the last 15 years. Every once in a while, a trend shows up that's real. And the question you need to ask yourself is, what is the penalty for waiting a little bit? So in the case of Bitcoin, and all the time that it was from between $1 and $400, the penalty for waiting was pretty low. But clearly, if you're investing now, which I'm not recommending, at $30 or $40 or $50,000, you missed a huge window because there was a trend going on that you were ignoring. When I think about what it means to be a web creator, it's too late to be the first person on TikTok. It just is. So I would focus instead on that smallest viable audience. And as I've said a couple of times, work that matters for people who care. Figure out who the people who care are. Figure out what they decide matters and go do that. I think we got time for one more.
Okay, so let's make it a good one.
They've all been good.
It's true, they've all been good. I agree. This is really a big one. If you could state in 2 or 3 sentences, what is the most important life lesson you have learned from your time on Earth? What would that be? It's a big one to end with. Can you hear me? Did you get that one?
I can. I was doing something I rarely do, which is being quiet. Ben and Roz Zander wrote a book called The Art of Possibility. And if you haven't read it, I beg you to go read it. Because I would say everything in The Art of Possibility. But now I'm going to give you my own answer, which is it's hard to overstate how much of the benefit of the doubt each of us has gotten and how much privilege we each have. Even if you don't have as much privilege as I do, coming from a dominant class in a country that has, taken way too much space for a very long time. We all have insight and we all have skill and care and health and energy. And we owe it to the people around us to make things better. We owe it to the world to treat other people with dignity and respect. And we need to challenge ourselves to not settle, to not just say, I'm only doing my job. That what we have is the opportunity to do the incredibly hard work of being dissatisfied on behalf of making things better. And to point to work we did and saying, I'm proud of that because I made something better, not for me, but for the people I serve. So I know that's more than 2 sentences, but it's life advice. So there you go.
I think that's an amazing, amazing way to end what has been really an incredible, inspirational session, Seth. So I want to really say thank you so much again for joining us for this web creator's journey and for all those tips you gave us to help us all level up.
Thanks. Go make a ruckus, everybody.